Andre DeQuisto. I'm the founder of Lone Wolf Portable Tree Stands, Lone Wolf Custom Gear.
All right, well, we got Dan on the line.
And I started thinking, I probably shouldn't have shared those pictures. But...
All right, guys, we got Don Higgins on.
Anything that's got to do with chasing big deer, I've got my hands in it somehow. So.
Well, my name's John Eberhardt. The first one that comes to mind was early in my career.
I'm Scott Buckley from Iowa. I had jumped him in the summer, too. He jumped up in that swamp grass down in the bottom lake.
And, yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm chasing it. There ain't nothing stopping me.
Justin Hollinsworth. I'm with Whitetail Addictions and Lone Wolf Custom Gear.
So what are we talking about tonight?
We're talking about the one that got away.
They talked about a deer that you didn't get it done on for some reason. So go ahead and get into the story of the one that got away. Welcome to the Whitetail Legacy Podcast, coming in your ear holes. And we appreciate you guys being here this time of year. If you're here, you're definitely a diehard whitetail hunter. You're listening to the podcast that talks about whitetail about 11 and a half months out of the year. We might throw a curveball 2-week episode at you about something that's not whitetail, but this is what we live and breathe. So we're going to come at you with a topic today is killing your 22 bucks, hopefully bucks, killing them now, and how you need to go about doing that, how we did it last year, and how we plan on doing it this year. We were able to kill 2 bucks in October because of this, and then a buck in November, and multiple encounters in November, close calls, just, right on the edge of killing. And then a close call even late season preparing for this, doing the same stuff. So we're going to get into the people that make this possible. We're going to get into the show. We're going to start off with Right On Optics. If you guys aren't following their Instagram, we talk about them on here. Their Instagram is a great place to see the new products. They put up some funny posts, but they put up a post about their 3-tactic. It's a 1x8x24. It's more of like a tactical, lightweight target shooting scope. And they put up a video. They drug it behind a side-by-side on a rope for like a couple miles. They took it off that. They put it on a gun. They shot with it, hit targets. Then he took it off and he banged it on threw it up in the air and banged it on some rocks. Put it back on the gun and shot targets with it. The things are indestructible. After all that, it still performed. And the point of it was that, hey, we're building a product that we're guaranteeing you a new one if it breaks, but these things aren't going to break. All American made. So I like when companies do, it reminds me of like Black Rifle. They just do off the wall shit to show that their product's different. Cause there's a lot of scopes out there to choose from, and
yeah.
Their Instagram's a great place. They just showcased their spotting scope on there. If you guys want to go see that, and they have a badass, tripod for that spotting scope, carbon fiber, real light, mil dots on it, whole 9 yard. I'm like, man, that's something we don't have. It's like a really, really solid spotting scope.
No,
I got kind of like a junk one, but not like a really, really solid one. So, all right, what you got over there?
All right, guys, I got Exodus, and this week we're going to share with you guys, for the last 7 years, Exodus has been putting out trail cameras and top-notch quality gear. We've been using them for the last 4 years, and one thing that's really special about these Exodus trail cameras is that you get that 5-year warranty when you buy their product. And Exodus is going to start running a special here on their Exodus Render, which is their cell camera. They're going to run it on their Verizon side. And due to listening to this podcast, if you enter Showtime, capital letters, one word, at checkout, you can save 15% on an Exodus Render. So to the first 100 people who get their order in first. So that's very vital. Let me double check here on the date that this is going to go so you guys can be within the first 100. And
one thing that I really I wanted to mention also that we're going to utilize is the SB18 solar panels. I feel like the buck that we're going to talk about this year, we might have to use a signal booster. I don't know how the signal is going to be, but a solar panel down there would be perfect, so we don't ever have to go in there. That's key. So I just wanted to mention that while you're looking that up. They do have that as an option too. And they are going to be at all the trade shows, and you guys can scoop the package of the render and the SP18.
So also on top of the 15% off of being the first 100 customers, it's also going to give you 50% off of a render and almost $75 off of the security bundle, which Cody and I like to use. And even though that you get that discount or that warranty, it's always good to have that extra added protection there. So that is going into effect here immediately as this podcast rolls out.
Nice. All right. You got next level.
Yeah, guys, we talked to Nate and Scott daily and multiple times a day. And here recently, Scott has been coming up with some family problems, some family issues. And if you guys could just keep Scott and his family and the next level family in your guys' thoughts and prayers, and send them some good vibes. Maybe reach out to them, send them a message on social, whichever platform you'd like to, and just let them know that you're thinking about them, because that'll be coming up here real fast.
Yeah. And then I also want to give a shout out to Ben Harris in the Bow Hunting League. He also has some family stuff going on. One thing that me and you are always really good about is, it's hard to like approach other guys. And I feel like we try to be pretty approachable. And if there's anybody that has listen to this podcast that needs to talk about something, they don't even have to be hunting related. Don't be afraid to reach out. It's good for us even to talk to people. It puts perspective on our lives. And it shit's rough out there, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. So if anybody's listening to this, if you want to just chat, whatever, reach out to one of our socials, and hell, we'll give you our numbers and you can reach out. We're definitely perfect, but we're in a good mental mind state most of the time. So whether it's just regular shit, dad shit, husband shit, whatever you got going on. I know this is a hunting podcast and you guys are probably like, well, it's a soap opera, but it gets hard out there, dude. And with, these two close friends of ours both going through stuff at the same time, it puts perspective in your life about shit could be a lot worse than what I got going on. So just wanted to throw that out there also. All right. We got anything else?
No, man, we're ready to rip here.
All right. So killing this year's buck right now is what we're going to be talking about. And there's a lot of stuff that goes into this. We were able to do this last year pretty effectively, I think. And we did it this time of year. And then we kind of double checked ourselves later in the year again. And one of the biggest successes of our year, I think, even though we didn't kill on it, was getting on that ridge in the hot corner, because there's a bunch of daylight there. We knew it in the past. We never went in there and scouted it, figured out where we wanted to go. Finally went in there, scouted it, hung the camera, and hell, we had a bunch of daylight bucks
I
there.
encountered a shooter there.
Yeah.
90 yards.
Yeah. I mean, and that's a buck that we've been targeting for a couple of years and we've never even seen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And,
right.
And, besides our big deer, every deer that we kind of wanted to target, short tine 10, crisscross,
west
side, they were all there in daylight at some point of that year,
Mm-hmm.
So you could have went on that ridge and felt confident that you could have killed any of those deer at any time.
Yeah.
And
all of October and second half of the rut.
Yeah.
Second half of the rut was bonkers.
And we were on other deer, at that point, got tied up on a giant for a while. And the second part of the rut kind of messed us up there. I was bucked out early. But I feel like if we would have hunted that ridge hard, we'd have had, a chance at one of those bucks.
Mm-hmm.
But it's good that you scouted it and you figured it out, you put the work in, and then you see that work, what you thought was happening with your scouting actually be what's happening. It gives you a little bit more confidence. So starting out of this, how you're going to kill that buck now is scouting. People say it all the time, and you guys hear it on podcasts. Scout now, scout in the off season. I feel like most people, and you can back me up on this if I miss, most people talk about scouting for beds and scouting for sign, which I think is important.
Yeah.
But it's not
Make
the
or
whole
break.
picture, and it might not be the most important thing, and I feel like that's what I think people like to show, that because that's what gets most people excited. Oh, like, oh yeah, look at this sign, or look at these beds. I'm in this buck's bed, but they don't show. They're scouting other things, but they're not showing it because that's not as cool. It's not as flashy. You know what I mean? Because the big thing now is buck bedding, finding where they're bedding. And would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. Like, finding a doe family group's bedding doesn't have that wow factor that,
Yeah.
a buck that you think is bedding there is bed and you're sitting in it. It just don't have the wow factor.
I don't feel like people share that info on social or make a post about it or a video. Oh, I found this new doe bedding area, or I found this, I found this access or something. I mean, they're not doing that. They're like, oh, look at this bed. This is where this buck's been bedding. This is where he's rubbing over here. I followed him in here, tracked him back. And I feel like you can kill on that 100%, but there's a lot of other steps those guys are doing that they're not talking about. And that's kind of what we wanted to hit on. So if you're going right now, and right now is the time to scout, like the next couple of weeks are probably some of the best time to scout in the year, I think, because most of the time you got nothing going on. Your kids aren't starting sports. You haven't been hunting for a while, so you're able to sneak away. There's no people in the woods covering up any sign that's already been made or that's out there. The shit is fresh. People haven't been out there for a long time, and those deer are doing their normal stuff right now because there's been a gap where there hasn't been hunters out there that's pushed them away from a certain area. So a deer is doing what it's naturally going to do right now. They're going to be using the trails that they're naturally using without hunting pressure or people out there deterring them right now. So I think this is the best time of the year to go. Another thing I really like about this time of year, is it's wide open. It's way easier to scout these hard to get to areas, the thick shit, the nasty stuff. It's cooler walking. You have to, you're not going to be sweating. You're not going to be fighting bugs. It's not going to be muddy. Like, you're going out there and it might be a little cold, but you're able to get in there and, okay, it's thick now. So in the winter, in the summer, or, October, it's going to be extremely thick. So be able to get through those areas way better. And when you're able to get through those areas, it doesn't deter you from pushing a little further. You're like, oh man, I just got to get through this little spot. But we've seen it, like in October, that little spot looks like a never ending wall of shit that you got to crawl through, and you have no idea. But now you're like, well, I think there's a gap right over there, and you pop through it, and boom, you're in a spot you never knew was even there because you never pushed further because you're not used to scouting in the spring or right there in October when shit's kind of thick still.
Yeah.
So
our guy Clint McCoy made a post here. It was a couple weeks ago, and I think he said it best. It's like, if you go out there and you put the work in, you kind of get the cheat code to what's going on out there. And if you go out there and you kind of have an idea of what you're looking for and how to process it, that's exactly what it is. Like, you're getting, that buck has told you what he did this past fall, and we've talked to multiple people over and over again who believe in that 3-day period that buck's going to be in the same thing. I'm not necessarily on that level, but that buck's going to have those tendencies that you can track and hopefully get ahead of him, which we all are trying to do, get ahead of that deer and kill him in 2022 here.
Yeah. So we are going to talk about sign. We are going to talk about beds. But we also want to talk about a bunch of other shit that I think is just as important or maybe more important. So starting off with the number one thing that keeps these deer safe is their nose, right? So when you're out there, right now, there's no leaves on the trees. There's nothing going on. and you're more than likely going to have the same wind that you're going to have in that mid-November, end of November time period when you're in these areas. So you got a west wind right now, and you get down in a draw or you're up on a ridge, that west wind is probably going to be pretty true to what that west wind's going to be in November. Now, October might be a little bit different, might be some undergrowth, but we've seen it. The wind does weird shit in draws. And if you just go in there scouting and you're not thinking about what the wind's doing while you're in there, and you go in there and hunt, it's going to be blowing probably a completely different way than it says on your phone. And you're going to get in there and it's going to swirl, and it's going to make a mess of your system. We had those does. Wasn't supposed to be blowing them at all, but the way that ridge works, it always has some kind of north. If it's a west, it's out of the north. If it's a south, it's south. You know what I mean? But if it's an east, it's a little bit out of the north. Like there's no way to get away around that a little bit of north. It just comes off there and then gets sucked down.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're covering this because we've been burned by it, and it's something that is so simple to a point, but gets overlooked. I feel like because I'm like, well,
you just don't.
I never
about
thought
it
of
because
that.
You're like, okay, I got a north wind. Here we go. But right now, you go out there and you have the time to do it. Right now, you sit there. Okay, it's a west. What's the wind doing? What do I got going on? Then you go back in there. Okay, it's a north. What do I got going on? And you can kind of make a plan to what you got. And with that wind, the next thing I think is on the list is if you're a tree stand hunter, you got to find a place that you're going to hang your tree stand to be able to get on this deer. And you can use this wind as an advantage of where you think this deer is coming and say, okay, in our situation, trees are hard to come by, which a lot of people that are hunting big woods or other places, there's an ass load of trees, and that's not really a problem. But I still believe there's the right tree in those scenarios. But for us, trees are kind of limited. So you have to find a way to get to these deer, and you kind of want a few trees if you're going to hang and hunt, or if you're going to move a stand. You don't want to put a stand in there right now, I wouldn't say, because the shit might change, on you. But you want to have that marked on a map, or don't do it in your head, because if you're like us and you got 8 different bucks, you need to have it marked somewhere. This is a tree that I could potentially get a stand in if the rest of the shit adds up. And you might not know that spot's going to be good until you go another 100 yards. But when you walk past that tree, you need to say, okay, I'm kind of liking this area. I can get in this tree. It takes 3 minutes to put a pin on Onyx or Hunt Stand, and I just put a little tree stand emblem and say huntable tree. That's all I say. Huntable tree in a wind direction. Huntable tree north. Huntable tree south of what I think the deer are doing in the area.
Yeah, I don't know if you covered. I had the extra bullshit going on here, but if you get into an area, like maybe pick out 4 or 5 trees that you can get into within that 25 to 30 yard gap for the different wind situations, because I hate not being able to go into a spot that I really feel like I need to be in, because I'm limited to, if it's just a regular hang on that, that's preset, then I'm just kind of stuck with that, but if you got 3 other trees over here that you can get in there on an east wind, then you can get in there and feel good about it. So maybe 4 or 5 trees with different wind scenarios there. Yeah.
And in the area that you want to hunt in, for someone that's listening to this, be like, well, trees isn't a problem. There's trees everywhere. For us, it's one of the biggest problems we have. Like it's very challenging where we hunt. A lot of high stem count, CRP, grassy stuff. So finding a tree that you can work with, and that's the way that we like to hunt, because of the wind. We've tried the ground game. It just isn't for us. The deer sneak up on you. We need to get elevated so we can see them coming. We're just not good at hunting on the ground, and we're not good. Like we don't go crazy high, but we're not good at hunting really low either. I feel like we get burned when we hunt low. So we're kind of in the middle rung, wherever the tree kind of puts us. Sometimes we use 3 sticks. Sometimes we use 4. Just depends kind of on what we got going on.
Well, I mean, we've already proved the deer out there are ninjas, because we go there and hunt, picked off. Go anywhere else and hunt, totally fine. Also, you think about the kill tree the far one, the kill tree. Like it's the only thing out there.
Yeah, it's the only tree there.
Within 200 yards, the only thing.
They just know to look up in that tree because they're like, it's the only tree. There's someone in it. I'm screwed. If there's not, I'm good to go. So, but so when you're looking at those trees, you're thinking about the wind, but then you got to think about how am I going to get to this tree? And that's one thing that I think a lot of people miss up on. They're like, okay, this is the easiest, quickest way in. I'm not going to bump any deer that are bedded. But you also got to think about the deer that are coming off the fields in the morning, getting back in there. So you have to find a way, if you're going to plan on hunting this in the morning, if you can't kill this deer in October, the does are how you're going to kill this deer. So you cannot bump those does. I know a lot of people say, well, I don't hang up until I bump a couple does, or I don't, I push in until I bump a few deer and then I hang up. That's great if you're trying to hunt beds. It's not great if you're trying to hunt doe bedding or a bedding area, or a travel corridor in between beds for a buck in the rut.
Yeah, in the rut. Yeah,
you're defeating your purpose. So you need to make a strategy for how you're going to approach that in October, and then how you're going to approach that in the rut. It probably needs to be different. Like for us to go into that ridge, if we would go past the hot corner, we would bump those does that come down.
Mm-hmm.
We knew that. So you got to kind of circle around and stay away from that. And then if you want to get in there, then you cut back up. This year, instead of going in, you kind of got to go way around and get in front of the does before they get to their bedding area and hope that they're running late in the morning and not back to bed. I mean, you're going to be playing a fine line of getting set up while they're still kind of traveling. And it's thick enough during that time period. They're going to be browsing later in the day, and I think you can get in there. But finding a way to access that stand, not only for your wind direction, but how you're not going to bump the does that you're going to potentially want to kill this buck on, or the scrape if he's coming in, just like when we killed Kevin Gates last year. We had to access that a certain way. If we would have come in through the doe bedding and bumped out all the does, they would have ran right through the buck bedding and pushed that buck out. So you got to kind of figure out a way to access it where it might be a little harder, it might be a little bit inconvenient, but it's the way that you have to do it to not bump does. And I don't think a lot of people worry about bumping does, but during the rut, that you have to have them in there, because that's why that buck's going to come in that area and stay. A buck might run through an area and miss it, but just like we seen that buck when we were hunting high on the ridge on the urban piece, the does were in there, and he kind of zigzagged that whole thing once he got a whiff of them in there. Hit it, circled, came back by us, and came back by us a different direction. And that deer might run in there. There's no does. He's going right out the other end. If there's does, he's going to kind of work that whole area trying to see if there's a hot one. And I feel like a lot of people mess up on that. Right now, there's two different ways that I think you can kill a buck. You can kill him on his bed in October, kill him on a scrape in the late October, second week of October, or you can kill him on a main travel trail in the rut. We're talking about the October, November time. So right now, I feel like their main travel trails are so easily seen, especially if there's snow on the ground. It's insane. The deer right now, they want to burn the least amount of calories or least effort they can. So they are taking the easiest route to get to point A to point B. Most of the time from bedding to food. So if you can find that main travel trail, you might not be able to kill that buck on that trail, but that's how the does are more than likely going to work that area. So in your mind, you say, okay, this is the doe's main travel area. If I walk this area, I'm going to get ground scented, and these does aren't going to come into this bed and potentially pull something in here in the morning, or they're not going to be in here when I try to sneak in here in the afternoon because there's going to be ground scent on them. They're going to come out, get the ground scent, boom, they're gone. So finding those main travel corridors now, especially if there's snow on the ground, which there's probably snow on the ground for most of the Midwest and some of the South right now, there's a dead set food to bed trout. Like, it's just insane. You go out there and it's just a straight line of how the deer work the area. And then there might be some cutoff shit, but there you can see the main trail where the does are heavily using every day, in and out. And it's like a highway. And you'll notice that it's the easiest way to get from point A to point B. They're not doing anything crazy. They're not trying to avoid hunters. So you can find them right now better than ever. If you go in there after the green shit comes up, you're not going to be able to find that trail like you are now. The grass is going to be coming back over there. You know, you might be able to see where they cross a creek in a wet spot, but you're not going to be able to see them where they're going through a grass hayfield or a CRP field. Right now, you can see that as plain as day. You know, you can see 100 yards ahead of what the deer are doing and looking at the ground and understanding it. So I think that's right now the best thing that you can do is go out there and pick out the main trails. And then off those main trails, those side kick out trails, you know, that it might be the buck trail. It might be a doe going over here to feed on a bush. You don't know. But if there's a heavy side kick out trail and you follow that, a lot of times that side kick out trail will meet back with that main trail at some point. And you can put that in your back of your mind and be like, okay, you know, this might be a secondary trail. Is this secondary trail going to be in my wind cone, you know, my scent cone? Am I going to be able to hunt this secondary trail, or is this going to be like a completely different setup on this trail? And kind of the scenario I'm thinking about is there's a heavy trail that goes into where PT is, we think he's at. And then there's a secondary trail that goes up by the muskrat tree. That's pretty heavy. And it kind of angles and goes back up in there. But I know from running cams there's a group of 4 or 5 does that bed up there on that secondary trail. So I'm thinking, okay, we got the main trail that come together. We got the secondary trail. I'm thinking we're dealing with 2 doe family groups. So you got a doe family group, that's the muskrat tree doe family group. And then we got a doe family group that's in the PT area. So now in my mind, off of just seeing these 2 trails, I understand that there's 2 different doe family groups that are bedding in different areas. And then you follow that secondary trail and then you find their beds. You're like, okay, here's a doe bedding area. And then I have this other one over here that's completely different. Now, if you're hunting a buck that is kind of a homebody or that's hunting a certain area, understanding where your doe bedding is so key, because if he's not with one doe family group, he's more than likely with the other one. You know, he's going to be with a doe somewhere in the rut. And knowing where all those are is key. But if you go out there in the spring, it's impossible, damn near impossible, to figure out where those does are bedding without bumping them. There's just no way. Do you have any way in the spring that you could think that you could find them?
No, I mean, because if you wait until, you know, even turkey season, like I think it's already too late. The green's coming in fairly strong then, and you done missed it. You got about 4 to 5 weeks, I feel like, from like Valentine's Day through that a good part of March to really get out there, depending on how much snow you have and whatnot. The ground's still going to be frozen and soft, and you'll be able to see them good trails and shit, see where they're jumping the fences, the creeks. But yeah, anything really past that 3rd week of March, I feel like you're starting to miss it.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, with the snow again, you can see a deer bed in the snow from 200 yards away. Like, okay, there's a bunch of different beds everywhere. Okay, doe family groups in here. And you can tell by the size of beds even, you know, okay, a couple fawn beds, a couple mature does. And you understand that, like, when I first started hunting, I didn't know there was different, like, subgroup doe bedding. I just thought the does all bedded where the does bed. You know what I mean? Like a thick shit over there. Does bed there.
Yeah.
But not all the does on your property are bedded together. There's
pockets.
Different family groups that are bedding, and especially when you're on a bigger piece. And a lot of those family group, like you go on a hunt and there's 10 does on the field. But you ever notice they come in a group of 3, and then maybe a group of 4, and then there's a group of 2, and then maybe there's a lone doe. They didn't just get up out of the same bedding area at a different time. they're coming from little different pockets to that field. So finding that offset doe bedding is crucial, because in that time period, if you're going to kill him late October or November and he's on your property, he's going to be with one of those doe groups. And having the option of, well, I can hunt this doe group on a south, but I can't the other doe group. It's better to hunt the doe group on the south and roll the dice than be like, well, I think he's over there with those, so I'm just not going to hunt because it's south. Like, you have a backup of, I'm still in the game and I'm on a south and a potential area that he can be.
Yeah, and kind of like, this is, maybe number one priority here, kind of ish. Just because I feel like there's, if you do got 4 does, it's going to take a while for all 4 of them does to come into heat and him to knock them all out and then, roll on. So it might be able to hold him there for a while. But I feel like this is kind of how I've scouted pretty much most of my life up until the last, 2 years, is really finding them doe bedding groups, just because you can kind of put that feather in your hat for later and like, okay, I think I've got a good strategy here for the rut. Them does aren't going to be going anywhere too far off of where they're at right now. Might, even bump up towards the field edge if they're off because there's more cover up there in October. But yeah, I feel like now you can really get a good plan for the rut and be able to capitalize on that during the first, 10 days of November.
Yeah, that's the best thing about it. Those doe bedding areas most of the time don't change.
Yeah.
Like, they are where they are. Those does are comfortable there. There's a reason that they're there. They're not getting messed with, and they're chilling there. So they're like, okay, this is my zone. And most of the time it doesn't trade. So you want to talk about going in there and other tree stands and other cameras, how we go about that and what we do with those?
Yeah, so it's just kind of like the same thing we do when we find a tree that we want to hunt. We put it down on our map. We use Hunt Stand, and we literally mark it and say there was a stand here, there was a camera here, and sometimes there's not even a stand there, but we can see that somebody's had a climber in the tree. Might be an old screw-in step or something there, but we literally just mark it, and then we're like, okay, what is this guy hunting? Where would a buck be coming from here, and kind of get into that hunter's mindset about what he's hunting, and then we kind of put that in our back pocket, like, well, maybe this is a spot we're overlooking or something, and just kind of go about that. And like, you had all them pins on your phone, and now they're all gone.
Tragic.
But it was just it's kind of like a way to not get stuck in a rut or overlook something, is if you're looking where other people are kind of hunting. And it also might be a way to stay away from an area. If you kind of go that route, they'd be like, hey, I know somebody's been in there putting pressure on that area, so I'm gonna kind of give it a 300-yard buffer or something like that.
Yeah, another thing that I like to key in on is you're looking at that. You're looking at the cameras. Okay, first thing I do, is it a mobile cam or not a mobile cam? Okay, if it's mobile cam, more than likely this guy's pretty serious about hunting this area if he has a mobile cam there, but he's not going to be in there pulling that card. I feel like nowadays, so many people are running mobile cams. If you find like a reg cam, I don't feel like there's a lot of guys that are going in deep and checking those weekly anymore. I feel like there's a lot of guys that are hanging those for months or all year and going in there and pulling them. A lot of people are running those mobile cams. So you look at that camera, like, okay, this is a mobile cam. For one, he feels good enough about this area to waste one of his most valuable assets for scouting during season. So I'm thinking, okay, this guy's got a mobile cam here. There's multiple people that got a mobile cam. There's obviously something here that's piqued their interest enough to put this asset here. Another thing about tree stands and cameras, I'm trying to think about how that guy is accessing. Like, we found that one stand that one time. We're like, how in the world is this guy accessing this thing? Like, I don't
don't know. Still don't know, but
that's
I'm
one thing
about
we
to.
need to do. After I show you that bottom, we need to loop around
Yeah.
and go in there and be like, okay, this guy's getting in here somehow. We need to figure out a way to do it. There's a way. There's a way he's getting in there. But that's something you put in your head, like there potentially could be someone in here, and you can kind of tell if a stand's been used a lot by, how the tree looks, how the straps look.
Yeah, I would say the straps.
Straps are a dead giveaway. The bow hook, if he leaves the bow hook and it's all tangled up as shit and frayed, you're like, okay, it's probably been here for a while. Because we run in that, you're not supposed to leave stands on public, but hella people do. There's stands all over the place. And I find more and more every year. I found some single man ladder stands back in there on that trail on PT.
Really?
Yeah. Remember we found that one
There
in the
was
ditch
that one
time?
Oh, yeah.
That guy like stashed and covered up with branches and shit, and they coming back.
Is that out that A field?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some in there further deeper now.
Perfect.
But that's, if you're hunting public, we hunt public and private. That's one thing that you can do right now is you can really see those people access trails is what I like to call them. Like a lot of people come to hunt this bottom and they turn left in the timber here because there will be like a dead set trail of the shit is knocked back and there's almost like a groove in the ground of all these people that are going in here, or there's a parking lot here. A lot of people are accessing the timber right here. And if it's your first time scouting there, you got to put that in your mind, like, okay, there's going to be a lot of people right here. So this is probably not a good spot to set up for an evening hunt or something, because there's going to be people coming out, because the people in the timber is going to be darker than on the field edge. So that people are going to be coming out on you. And if you're right there, like on the state forest, if we set up in the corner on the west, like we walk, guarantee someone would come out of that west from that CRP field and it would be dark on them.
Yeah.
And they come out of that hedge timber and we'd be sitting there on the edge of that field and guaranteed that there'd be someone there at prime time. That's just not a spot that you want to hunt, because you're going to run into that problem.
Yeah, and one thing I want to say about these people trails is also another thing that you can pick up on is if like there's a pretty good sized down limb or down branch or something, and it's either one sawed off or two like snapped like, chest high or something. Like deer's not gonna be out there snapping through a damn branch like that, or a good solid limb. So that's a good indicator that somebody's accessing into there that way, instead of, maybe they couldn't move it or maybe it's still hanging down or whatever the case is. But big branches like that are snapped can.
Another really good place to find it is like a creek crossing, not only for deer, but if there's a creek crossing, you can just see, okay, there's a shitload of people that are crossing the creek right here, because it's like wallowed out, tracks all over the place. And I think about that on the state forest, where you got to like go down that hill and then cross that creek and come up. It's like a dirt trail, 3 foot wide, like national park bullshit out there, like.
Well, the thing about
it
is,
out there walking their dog,
I would say it's getting so worn out now. It's damn near straight up and down.
Yeah.
Straight luge down that.
Yeah. You're like, there's a shitload of traffic that's right here. So this is probably an area that I want to avoid. Another thing, if you're looking at public, is look at the parking lots. Most public, you have to park in a certain area. And some of the deer that we've been hunting have been extremely close to parking lots. And I feel like those deer kind of do that on purpose, because they're like, okay, there's someone here, like I'm going to lay low. So we end up parking in a different area than the spot that we were hunting because of that. And I feel like if there's no trucks there, I feel like that buck's going to be more apt to move. And I think that might have been, there's already cars there, but we parked right at that parking lot and then went in that timber and hunted. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I think he's used to it, but if there's, if there's no trucks there, I don't think you should park there, because it's just a dead giveaway that there's someone out here. Like he can hear that truck pulling there. He's that close.
Oh yeah.
And especially late season, as many beds are in there. If a guy went out there late season and hunted that little patch, they would know dead for sure that there is a car in there. Mm-hmm. And
I would say
Go
we've
ahead.
done this parking thing for 5 years. Not you know. And what does it cost you? It costs you 15 minutes and a walk on a paved road or a gravel road out in the wide open. Like just a little bit of effort, and you're not gonna give the deer a dead giveaway that. Oh, I just pulled in.
Yeah.
I'm slamming the tailgate, slamming the doors, cussing because
Yeah,
I forgot my
and-
release.
And it also throws off the people that are hunting that property.
Yeah,
You know?
I wonder what people
Like,
thought, man.
If we park your truck on the east and then we drive to the west, like people are like, oh yeah, they're over here, and we're actually on the west,
Yeah.
But they think, oh, well, there's someone back there, but there's no one back there. We just parked the truck there, met there, and then looped around and hunted the other side. Or a lot of times we'll meet at my house and then only take one truck, so it looks like there's there's only one guy here. But actually there's, two, but something to think about. Parking lots are key. And even though people don't talk about them, everybody's thinking about that. Everybody's looking at that, looking about how many trucks are there, thinking about, should I even waste my time here? But don't let that deter you. We've seen heavy trafficked areas hold giant deer. So they just have a way to eliminate the people, get around them somehow. I don't know how they do it, but they're very good at that. Another thing you can really see right now going on with foot traffic, you get in there and there's not a lot of people there, so you're not giving away anything that you're doing. Like if you go out there during mushroom season, or you go out there when fishing's good, and you're carrying a backpack in there with binos and shit, and there's someone bass fishing, they're gonna be like, oh, hey, what are you doing? You're like, oh, I'm scouting for deer. And then maybe that guy didn't even know you could deer hunt there. Or maybe that guy's like, oh man, maybe I should deer hunt here too. Right now, there's literally nobody out there. It's a ghost town. There might be some ice fishers that are hunting, fish right next to the parking lot, but you're not gonna meet anybody out in the woods. And we've scouted close to season and met people out there and had to talk to them about, you got cameras and shit, and you're like trying to not give away that there's a giant in here, you know what I mean? Like, what do you say? You're like, oh yeah, we're out here just scouting and putting all this time in, but there's nothing here. Like, don't waste your time.
Just sweaty as balls, like
yeah. You're just putting a hell of work in, and they're like, if they're back here, there's a giant back here. Like people just know,
yeah.
If there's a reason, you guys. But right now, there's no one out. It's a ghost town, So you can see the foot traffic, the areas that they went, but now you don't have to deal with the foot traffic. You don't have to meet up with a guy or meet a guy in a parking lot and chat with them, because most of the time, nobody's thinking about deer hunting right now. In like a few weeks, it might change when sheds start dropping, but right now, you kind of got a window where people are not thinking about shit. So, wanted to mention that. The biggest thing that you can do right now, since there's snow on the ground, is everybody's wondering where these deer are feeding. Like everybody has an idea where they're feeding, but they're not 100% sure. And it is late season, so it could change. There could be more deer in an area than another area. But those main travel routes from bed to food are never more visible than right now, any time of the year when there's snow on. You will see, okay, man, there is a heavy spot of traffic in the field right here. Why are they hitting the field right here? Maybe it's a low spot. Maybe it's, well, they're all coming from the timber over here, so they're just popping out 100 yards and feeding here. You have a really good idea of where all the deer are coming from, and those does are going to be feeding in that ag when it's season. So you can literally get on that ag, follow a trail out of that ag, and walk to a doe bedding area. It's like an absolute, someone drew a line to say, okay, I'm going to show you where the does are feeding, and I'm going to show you where the does are bedding. Instead of you going in there, you have no clue what shit's going on. There might be deer feeding in this field. You're not 100% sure because there isn't tracks all over the place like there is now. You're kind of weeding your way through. Okay, this looks like doe bedding. There's literally a roadmap out there right now of this is exactly what the deer are doing. Like it's drawn in the sand and the snow of they're coming here, they're crossing here. And not only can you use that for scouting, but you can also put some of your theories, like we thought they were crossing the water in one spot. found out, okay, yeah, there's a pretty heavy trail where they're crossing the water here. So during season, we think they're wading through that water to avoid people. We thought about that, but we never were able to go in there and get the trail because the does aren't wading through that water. I think the bucks are eliminating them, and there's very few deer that are wading through the water, but the one that we want to kill, we believe is.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lighter trail that goes right across that lake now, and big tracks on it. And so I'm like, more than likely, he's used to crossing the water here, so he's just crossing the ice now, and you can see that with the snow on the ground. When you go there before and the deer might use it 3 times a week, there's going to be nothing there. But the snow has been on the ground for a month. It's like you're going to see every time you went through there. And you can literally follow that big set of tracks all the way back to where that deer is bedding. So that's the last thing I want to talk about is bedding and sign. That's what everybody else talks about. That's the main thing that people will talk about, scouting. That's the last thing that we want to talk about because we feel like it's pounded to death. But I'll take bedding, you take sign. That good? So if you can find the bedding right now, I think it's good, but you cannot. That bedding is more than likely going to be different than I feel like right now than it is in season. Those deer aren't pressured right now. They're probably closer to ag, I would say, than they normally are. Don't be surprised if these deer are hella far from ag. We see deer travel 1.5 miles one direction on the regular to get to ag fields.
Yeah.
If you would have told me that 3 years ago, I'd be like, there's no way, dude. 4 years ago, I'd be like, you're fucking crazy. These deer are 500 yards in here, coming out to the ag max. But we've seen them repeatedly do this. Like, there's a hot food source, they'll travel 1.5 miles like it's nothing. They give no shits. So finding those beds might be different, but you have an idea of it. But you can find those beds with the rubs by them and shit. You can get in there and you can figure that deer out a little bit more and figure out how you want to approach that bed. I feel like that's a great tactic, but it's talked about extensively by multiple different people. So it's a tactic that we use, but like I said, enough people have talked about it that I think they've covered it. But go ahead and go into sign. What do you got to say about this finding sign this time of year?
Like, I mean, Buck's definitely going to let you know that he was there. You're definitely going to be able to see all the rubs. You'd be able to see most of the licking branches that are broke. Maybe not be able to see the scrape due to snow, but you can get into that maybe here towards the end of the month or when the snow's gone. And sign for us has never been like what everybody kind of talks it up to be, I guess, to a point. Would that be fair to say, Cody?
Yeah.
Everybody's like, find the sign, and trust me, we find hella sign. Like, I mean, we can find the sign, but to be able to hunt it and be successful, it's just not like, it's different for especially the public police that we hunt. Like, it's just different out there. And that's one of the key points I want to hit on is don't let the lack of sign deter you from hunting an area. Like, if it's got everything that buck needs, we can even put in some scrapes, and we've had some good success with that. Putting in some mock scrapes early as July, and they'll keep hitting it right up to the rut, and that's really helped us narrow down some zones on some deer and locate some deer earlier than we have been in the past. Because there's not a lot of sign out there. There's not a lot of natural scrapes on this property or even a couple other private pieces that we hunt. So we've utilized them scrapes. And so just don't let the lack of no sign deter you. But then also in the same hand, on the lease that Cody had, there was so many scrapes and so many rubs. Like, literally, you talk about the mother of all scrape lines. Like, when we come around the corner and we seen the 9 fresh scrapes in a row. Like, we were both like, holy shit, like something just rolled through here. And not saying that, the cameras catch everything, but we were tracking Mr. Freeze. We had like 3 cameras basically on top of each other, checking the entry and exits right out of this doe bedding. And, out of the 3 or 4 months that we were trying to track freeze down, we only had one shooter buck daylight on in that area. And then all this sign shows up, randomly to a point, and you would think it's the hottest fucking thing out there, and you need to be there tonight.
And we hunted that multiple times, like 5 or 6 times.
Yeah,
and never
we hunted
seen
right
a shooter
there.
buck.
No shooters.
Yeah, never seen a shooter buck, and we could see a pretty good distance there, but hella nighttime picks, shitload of nighttime picks. So that just goes to show you that, like you said, not having a shitload of sign is fine. Don't wash it out, but don't walk into an area and be like, this is the spot because there's a shitload of rubs. It could be completely nocturnal. The deer might be there, but if you hunt there, you might hurt your odds of killing the deer than actually help your odds because you're leaving scent there. You're probably getting down by the time he's coming in and walking out. We had great access to that area.
Unbelievable.
Access.
What do you think about what do you think about something like that? If just a horned up 3-year-old rolled out of, a spot that he's been in and now he's trying to go out and get his own. And then he's just like, this is a totally new area. I'm just going to leave hella sign here and let somebody know that I'm here now.
Yeah. I don't know. It's sign's such a confusing thing. Like we've had really good lucks with scrapes. We crush them on that. We've had really good luck with buck beds, like sign rubs on buck beds. We go in there and we hunt them.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we killed pickles. That's how we killed my buck. We knew they were in there bedding. But you have to see the sign and then verify. You can't just say, I'm banking the shit on this sign, believe, but verify the sign. And like you said, if there's no sign, you still have to verify that there's not a deer in there that you want to hunt. You can't just be like, no. If we took someone out and walked them through the public piece, they'd be like, man, there's just no buck sign out here. Like there's just nothing. And there's very, very, very little. Like I've never found a giant rub out there, like big.
Not one that I want to take a picture of,
like big timber rub, and we find like a lot of little cedar tree shit and stuff like that, but nothing crazy. But there's deer like this out there, there's deer like that out there, and there's no big sign. Like you would walk that and be like, it looks good, but there's no giant buck sign. There's not here, but
it just makes me wonder, like, obviously we didn't have a camera in the hot corner until now, and we made it over a mock scrape that we put in.
Yeah.
And like, what would them bucks be doing if that scrape wasn't there? Would they just be hanging out on the other side of that washout and just going down the thing,
Yeah. I don't know. I think that's just a travel corridor there.
They would still be there and still hitting it, but it's just they're not going to be.
Don't lay a lot of sign out there, and we find ground scrapes every now and then. But you go into a big timber like ag country kind of area, there's shit everywhere. There's ground scrapes everywhere. There's rubs everywhere, and you go in there and there's just not dick. There's nothing, and it just blows me away. But like I said, that a lot of people talk about sign rubs and all that. Believe but verify is all I'm going to say about that. Don't, because we burned ourselves so many times on, man, this shit's fresh. It was fresh last night. Getting this nocturnal sign, and we waste our hunts on there, and we actually hurt and pushed the deer off that sign when we should have been 300 yards deeper in the good shit. I feel like a lot of people see the sign and they stop and they go, oh man, this is it. This is the spot. When actually the spot's another 200 yards or something, And it's really hard to leave that hot shit. It's really hard to be like, I'm not going to hunt this. It's it. But, we're not saying not to hunt it. Hunt it and verify if the deer are there or not. Run a cam on it. Verify the deer are there or not. And don't run the damn cam right on the scrape either. Run it off the scrape.
You mean like more than 4 feet?
Yeah, run it more than 4 feet. We've made that mistake, and every time I see someone doing it, I'm like, bro, I want to move the camera for him. I'm like,
Yeah.
just let me move this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to steal it. I'm just going to move it because you're going to get about 8 times the pictures you are right now. If you just move this for 5 yards over here. You know?
What about hunting out in the wide open like that?
Yeah.
That's prime too.
Yeah, that's prime. But so that's how we believe that you can kill your buck, you know, your 2022 buck right now. And the people that are listening to this, especially this deep, are the hardcore hunters, or it's the guy that wants to get to that level. And I wanted to bring this up last and just kind of ask you, the people that we know are hardcore, this is one of the things that they nonstop preach every damn year. And you see it on the Instagram story. You see it on their post. They're out there. They're shed hunting. They're scouting. They're looking at rubs. They're thinking about all this shit that we mentioned, but they're not talking about it all. But that's how you kill them. You got to be able to find these deer, and you can't find them in October. You're out of time at that point. You can find them, but it's easier to find them like pickles, and to stage it up all year and have a game plan, and then go in there and smash the first day the first day of bow season. Right. You know, like if we wouldn't have scouted that area, never would have been there. No, it's a shithole spot. It's an absolute hole in the wall. And after you killed that deer, wasn't a deer there for
forever.
We pulled the cam like third week of November. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing there.
Yeah.
But
and we're not saying that you can't get on one here, you know, in August or September. It's just so much harder.
Yeah, it's a lot harder because you're trying to scout when the shit's thick. You're limited on time.
You can't see. It's hot.
You can't. Yeah, and the bad thing about scouting the deer in August and September is if you find this giant in August or September and you're scouting this area, for us, there's a 70% chance that deer is going to leave that area.
Mm-hmm.
So you just wasted all that time scouting. When you know, if you have an area in mind that you know a buck's using and you scout it now, you already know he's going to be there when you can hunt. He's going to be there in October, November, because you have you might have been hunting this deer. Like in our case, we've been hunting this deer for a couple of years. We got trail cam pictures of him. We know he's in there. So that's when you dive in full send. Or if you're trying to learn a new piece, if you wait till August and September, oh man, I got a giant, I got to figure it out. You can go in there and figure it out, but there's a pretty I say 50-50 chance that deer sleep, and you're never going to see him again.
Mm-hmm.
Like you might get lucky and kill him randomly in the rut, but if you got a velvet giant, you got a 50-50 flip of the quarter whether that deer is going to be there during huntable times or not. And then a lot of them we notice are there first 2 weeks of October, and then they're gone. Like you got a window, and after that, the shit is.
I was going through the card off the corner down there that we had in video. We had that giant typical in velvet up there.
Did we?
Yeah, and then so I was wondering when he come back through and left. I was wondering if that was like his 3-4 day period of coming back to his summer range, trying to pop some does in there, and then back to wherever, back to his rut range.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that's about what it was like. Dude showed up 2 days later, rolling out.
Yeah. He's only there for a couple days and then gone.
Yeah, not tonight, but I'll send that to you.
Yeah.
100%.
All right, yeah. Right on.
We're
cool.
We're good here. Yeah.
All right, guys. Yeah, we're going to wrap this up. We hope you guys enjoyed it. Appreciate you guys listening to us this time of year. You guys are the diehards. We love you for it. We're not holding back this year. We're on a couple absolute giants, and it's going to be another magnum roll of dice kind of year.
I was going to say, took a year off of the Giants and right back on.
Yeah, we took a year of killing, and then we're going right back at it. But really appreciate you guys listening this long, and always do the right thing. Try to leave a legacy, and Whitetail Legacy is out.